Welcome to Spiritual Talk with Christy, Godwin, and Friends, an authentic podcast where we sit and discuss all things spiritual. I want to welcome everyone here today. I am Christy Godwin, resident psychic medium here. Welcome to my podcast, Spiritual Talk with Christy Godwin and Friends. And I have the beautiful Susan Lander today, civil rights attorney turned psychic medium turned screenwriter, right?
Exactly. Thank you so much.
I love it. I love when she, and for everyone watching, I have known Susan for a little while. We met in psychic medium training and just she couldn't get rid of me.
I wouldn't want to.
Poor thing. She gave me her phone number one day. But we are here to discuss Susan's book. So if anyone has been following me on any of my social media outlets, y'all have seen me reading from a book. It's called Conversations with History by Susan Lander. I over the time have just been randomly picking some of my favorites out, and so we are here to discuss this book with Susan. Thank you so much for being with us today.
You're welcome. I'm happy to be here and talk about this book because I love talking about it.
Yeah, I want to tell, before we get into the book, I want to tell the watchers and listeners a couple of things that have happened. If you're watching this on YouTube, you will see my lights going in and out, and I am not messing with them. That has been happening. And we spent probably 5 or 10 minutes in me saying not kind words to my lights here. You see, there they go, in and out, there it goes. I'm not even touching them. And you will get that with a lot of spirit energy. Also, something else that happened is I had 2 people picked out that I specifically wanted to talk about because I wasn't sure how many we were going to get through. And Susan had the same 2 picked out. So I absolutely loved it. But now give us a little bit of history, Susan. How did this book come about?
This book was, well, for me, it was a surprise. I had retired from practicing law. And it says in my book, so it's not a secret, I was actually pretty sick. And I got very sick at one point and was in a coma. And right before it happened, I saw my spirit guides, who are our spirit helpers on Earth. Well, they're in the spirit world, but they help us on our path, but we're here. And they appeared to me. And they said, well, do you want to stay or do you want to go? And I was like, oh my God. And they said, you have 3 minutes. They seriously, 3 minutes. I was like, gotta be kidding. And I thought, oh my God. And, you know, many people have chronic illness. It's really hard. And I've been sick for quite a few years at that point. And I was like, oh my God, that sounds nice. You know, not suffering, this and that. It's true. And
it is true.
You know, people know that who have chronic illness. And then I thought, and I tuned in because at that point I'd been practicing, you know, psychic work and mediumship and teaching psychic development. And I thought, oh no, you know, I have this book I have to do. I have to do a book. And I never did my book. And I just don't want to leave before I do that. And I said, okay, fine, I'll stay. And then that was it. I don't remember anything for a week. I was out, I was in a coma.
Right.
And then and they said, if you stay, we have a surprise for you. Exactly. Oh, they know. Yes, I'm like that. They're like, really? Surprise. Surprise. And yeah, that was very appealing. And I woke up from the coma. And then I had what the doctors called a miraculous recovery, which I did along with my guides. They gave me healing mantras and to use, you know, visualize colors, and that's a whole different story. But I had what the doctors called a miraculous healing. And then 3 months later, I was just sitting in my kitchen in New York, where I lived at the time, and Ben Franklin showed up in my kitchen. And I was like, oh, hello.
And then Franklin kicks the book off.
Yeah, he kicked the book off. And I just was like, I had been actually reading something about him. So as mediums, sometimes we do see a famous spirit. It's not right. It's not that unusual.
And I will say that you don't see a lot of mediums just randomly reading famous spirits for people who come to you for visits, because they can't identify the person. And so in my own business, I give evidential information, as do you, I know, because to build a trust, the client has to know who you have. And so if they can't verify the information from the famous person, but a lot of times, as you know, because Susan and I have hung out some, and mostly via Zoom, but I hope to meet her soon in person. No telling what will happen.
Major lights flickering, yeah.
I know. Did you see the lights flicker? They
yeah.
did. So whenever we get together, we will channel, because we have this trust. And I have brought through all kinds of people for Susan. And I can remember one day specifically, and the gentleman is actually stepping back up here. I started describing him, and it was your quintessential, what I call a Jewish rabbi. Was I calling him a rabbi? I was calling him something.
As a rabbi, my rabbi guide. He was my very first spirit guide. Hi, Rebbe.
Yeah, yes. So I was like so confused. I started describing this person, and she's like, "Oh yeah, that's my guide. What's he got to say?"
Wow, it's amazing he's here. I'm so happy.
He comes up a lot when I'm around you, Susan. You cannot control this guy. Okay, well, so then, when you were talking to Bit, I love that you said you were in your kitchen. And I want everyone listening and watching to imagine this. You're in your kitchen.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're seeing Ben Franklin there in the Ben Franklin garb.
Yeah.
And you weren't scared, because
no,
as a psychic medium, I do want to touch on that for people that are listening. The only time I've ever been scared of a spirit are the ones incarnated into human bodies.
Smart.
Once spirits leave the human body, they no longer scare me.
I know. Oh my God. Yeah. And the spirits in the book, they talk about, Kurt Vonnegut. I keep hearing him. He's in the book. He was so fun. I think he was probably one of my very favorites.
Really? No, that was one of my questions. I was going to ask you who your favorite spirit was. So let's just jump right there. Who was it?
Well, he was Kurt Vonnegut. He's a brilliant writer, and he was just hilariously funny. They're way funnier than me. And he just said these amazing things. He's like, well, heaven is not boring. It's not just all like harps up here and stuff like that.
No, I hear that a lot from the spirits.
Yeah. He was hilarious. I have to read. I have to read it because I have his quote. Can I just read my favorite?
Of course, please do.
Every time I'm gonna give up the goods here. Look at this.
I have some.
I'll give up the goods. This is my podcast book, because every time I do it, I look through and there's different quotes that jump out.
Yeah.
So I said, what can you tell us? Basically, what can you tell us about heaven? And what can you share about life? Like, what's the good news and the bad news about life? And he said, okay. Because in one of his books, he said, if I die, God forbid, I'd like to go to heaven and ask somebody in charge up there, hey, what was the good news and what was the bad news? And he said, the bad news is if you don't do it just right, you have to do it all over again. Just kidding. The great tribunal up here isn't that unforgiving. We really are masters of our own destiny. And that's both the good news and the bad news. You do things right, you get the credit. You screw up, you get the credit for that too. You're at the beginning, you're at the end. What do you want your middle to look like?
Oh my goodness, that is so funny.
Oh my God. Well, of course I said, are you planning to come back here?
Right.
If so, what would you be? Thinking, okay, he's going to be a rabbi, he's going to be a writer. He said, a frog. Just kidding. Just kidding. I wouldn't be anything so green. I mean,
oh my goodness. I love that.
That's a thing about, yes, it's called Conversations with History. It is not boring. It's a series of short pieces featuring different celebrities and historical figures in spirit. And it's funny.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's one thing I will say when I do my personal readings. Anyone has a reading with me before, that's the one thing they say is how much they can feel the personality. And having
Mhm.
known Susan and seeing her read mediumship wise, it didn't surprise me how much personality came through, because I just think the really good mediums are good at bringing through personalities, because that's what's going to make you remember your past relative is the personality. And I just
Mhm.
so enjoyed that. And I like history to a certain extent, but history can be kind of dry. But when you can hear the personalities of the people coming through, that's what makes the difference. And I do want to talk about real quick about someone. I know I have a lot of questions here for us to cover, and we might get to them, we might not. Okay, I'm going to talk about this one person coming up next. And it was one that Susan mentioned, and she's in the middle of the book. I didn't think that's one that Susan would talk about.
Oh yeah.
Phenomenal. Lenny, and I'll probably butcher her last name when I pronounce it, so please correct me if I'm wrong. Lenny Riefenstahl.
Riefenstahl, who is the one that is messing with your lights.
Yes, because she was a photographer, but now
Yeah.
she was very well known for helping with the propaganda of Hitler.
Yeah. She scared me. I did not want to talk to her. Like,
I imagine.
I mean, in this lifetime and others, I'm Jewish, and I'm like, you do not make me talk any Nazi stuff. Like, she's too scary. And so the spirits in this book basically were orchestrated from the other side.
Yes.
When it started, Ben Franklin showed up, and he actually showed up and disappeared. And I was like, well, that was interesting. And then he came again the next day, and then the spirit was just sort of parked there. And I was like, okay, hi. Is there something you want to say? And he starts talking, and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And so I start writing, telling me about what he's doing on the other side, and how we have so much personal power now because of all the instant access we have to everybody, and people just shy away from using their power. But and just and he was fun and funny and told puns, and it was amazing. But then he disappeared, and I was like, okay, that was very strange. But I had written up the whole interview, and it was about 45 minutes. I just kind of was inspired to write it, ask him questions, and just follow along. And I was like, okay, universe, what was that? Wouldn't that make a cool book, right? That it just hit me. I'd never planned to do anything like that. And I said, all right, universe, I will play. If this is supposed to be a book, tell me who I'm supposed to talk to. And I got back really fast. Frederick Douglass, Abby Hoffman, Andy Warhol, and Farrah Fawcett. And I was like, okay, not anybody I would pick off the bat. Yeah.
And I will say Farrah Fawcett was more interesting than what I expected her to be.
She was really, it was all about her advocacy on behalf of abused women. But at any rate, I went and did the interviews, and then they all sorted themselves out. And I had these lists all over my refrigerator with names. And I would be like, okay, tomorrow's you, the next day's you, next day, that like that. And then there were and then Lenny Riefenstahl kept coming up. I'm like, no. And then she wouldn't go away. And finally, I actually called a friend of mine, and I said, because she wouldn't go away, and I said, I need to do this, obviously, because this is not for my complete fun and gratification here. Right. So the universe wants me to bring this through. And I actually had a friend sitting on the phone with me, like as moral support while I did this interview, which we can certainly do as mediums. We don't have to be like me and you, we have some bandwidth, right? And it turned out to be a really good interview. And but it was sad, she looked back at her life. This is the woman that photographed the Nazi party gatherings.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
people said she was a Nazi sympathizer, and she did certainly get out that message.
Right.
And she came back in to do her penance, really. But she came in to talk about, she wanted to clear her name. She wanted to let people know she wasn't evil. And, she asked for forgiveness for rallying people to his support. And she participated, she said, perhaps unknowingly and unwittingly, in an unspeakable chapter in history. She'd rather leave it in the past. For her, it's so, but here, and maybe why you picked it, but it's certainly relevant to now.
Yes,
It's her
that's
hope
why.
that people hold in their minds that blind nationalism and national fervor to the exclusion of all reason could easily happen again.
You know,
And yeah.
that is exactly why I picked it. And so there's a couple of points I want
Yeah.
to make right here. For one thing, anyone watching this, please read this book, not just as entertainment, which it absolutely is, but there was not one message, one person that I read that did not have some relevancy to now. Every single one of them. Every single one of these people had relevancy to now. And so you have to think about, and the reason I was so taken by her is it so, to me, mirrored what is going on today with our news agencies and our social media. So you have to, I want everyone listening to just envision this. You're in Germany, Hitler's coming up. Your country's struggled. Your country is down in the dumps. Kind of what, I feel like we're experiencing some in our country right now. And, I love my country. Don't get me wrong, great. We have people that have started in the military, love my country, but we are having some struggles right now. So now I do feel like that we are kind of open to this lady, if this lady were to come in here, we're back in Germany, struggling, trying. This woman's giving them hope. She's putting this party into this beautiful light of hope and strength and German power, not really talking about the negativity that can come on the other side of that. And I also it said, this is some of her words. So when y'all read the book, for those of you, it has SL, it would be Susan and asking the question, then it will have the initials of the person answering. So her answer was, to something Susan had answered, I was just swept away in the wave of nationalism, and Susan just touched on this, that all of us in Germany were affected by at the time. We were all looking for a savior in the wrong places. We were scared, and fear has a way of removing inhibitions. I think that is so relevant to right now, that it's so easy to stick our head in the sand when we think the great savior is coming in, and there is no great savior except for ourselves banding together in love to raise this country up to a better standard, and it can only be done in love.
Pardon me. Yeah, absolutely. I feel something really interesting it also is going on now. Two things. One, I want to actually mention, this book was published by Hay House. I wrote it in 3 months.
Oh, unbelievable in itself.
Entered it, it was all spirits all the time. And then I got this thing across my email saying, hey, want to be a published author? Do you have a book? And I was like, workshop, and you have a chance to win a book deal. And I just knew, I was like, if I go to this, I know this is going to win. Because I didn't do this for me. It was all them. And that's exactly what happened. I won the book deal, and I won the first prize and the second prize, which were 4 shows on Hay House Radio. So got to talk about all these messages. But what I think is an interesting opportunity that you just touched on is that we've never been more able to connect. And I've noticed this. I'm going to fully acknowledge my part in it. My background, okay, ultra liberal, Jewish, flaming liberal, worked for a labor union, Democrat. I had to look at my own stuff when I started doing spiritual work, because working for a labor union, you work you know, I would do cases to help workers. You know, I
Right.
worked, okay, and then I work for public sector unions, so it was all the government.
Oh,
Yeah, they were all government and healthcare workers who will be my great loves always. And I had to adjust my thinking that rich people were bad,
right.
because that's so common, and it's such a block to actually our own abundance, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Okay, rich people are bad. They're not. You know, it'd
Mhm.
be great to be abundant, and you could do all sorts of great things with your money. I actually, when I did this, I bought the domain conversationswithhistory.org. I hope someday to have a philanthropy for all of their causes, like Farrah Fawcett,
Yes.
domestic violence,
Yes,
and different
yes, yes.
causes. But
Mhm.
I also noticed that I have learned that I have friends now with different political views,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I have learned to listen and to not judge. And also, I understand that we often come right back to the same place we just arrived. Have you noticed that?
Yes,
If,
yes,
if you have enough of a discussion, you notice that you end up at the same place. I
yes,
find
yes,
it
yes.
fascinating. And I also notice how hurtful it is to people
Mhm.
when people are like, this is my opinion and it's the right one. So
Yeah.
this is all about Lenny, and yeah. So
You know,
I just think that we have an opportunity here.
we do, and Susan touched on so many things. For one thing, she's has said something a couple of times that I want to bring up for everyone listening, is that we all have intuition. We all have psychic powers. Listen to them. If Susan had not listened to the person coming in telling her that this was going to be a book, because she said when Ben Franklin had visited her, she's like, oh, this would be a good book. That was not Susan's thought. She may think it was her thought. That was not her thought. That was her guides. That was her people from the other side dropping that in. She grabbed it and ran with it. And that's what we have to do. Our people on the other side will help us, but we have to row the boat. So they would drop the thoughts in. So they dropped the thought into Susan that this can be a book. She could have ignored it and said, no, thank you, and kept going. Or she could own it and row the boat to make it happen. And that's what she did. And I so appreciate it, because I have this beautiful book. Also, I love that she was just talking about, y'all can imagine, I have staunch Christian, has been in the military for almost 30 years. You can imagine that my belief system might be a little bit different than like Susan's and some of the other people in the spiritual realm, but it's really not. Like once we start talking.
I've noticed, yes, it's kind of wild, really. And I've learned that the pandemic did it, COVID, because I was put in a position where I really met and grew to love many people who were different from me.
Yes, absolutely. And and it's all about the love of it. And you see that almost they don't maybe not say that word for word, but almost every person that you are interviewed in here talks about joy, talks about love, talks about following your passions, all the things that I, as a medium, bring through from people's past relatives is live in joy, live in love, pursue your passions, don't sweat the small stuff. And I'm so glad that Susan brought up Lenny, because I knew that that was going to be a tough one for her, because of course I knew she was Jewish, and
Yeah.
she was such a huge tool in Hitler's toolbox to put him on the next level.
Mhm.
And I can't imagine going to the other side and looking back at the impact of those actions and having to carry the weight of that. I actually had a little bit of heart for her, because I don't think that she knew what she was doing when she was like, she didn't realize the enormity of what she was causing when she was on Earth. And so when she passed over, when you pass over and you can see the impact of all your actions that they had on each and every person.
Absolutely. One of my favorite, well, it's so hard, but one thing she said in here that I've never forgotten. She said, if I photograph something known to be cruel, it does not mean that I'm cruel. It means that I was merely a photographer photographing something cruel. It's it's hard, right?
Yes.
What's the responsibility?
Right. Oh my goodness, Susan. I was so there with that. Oh, I was thinking the same thing.
That was like, and that was the beginning of the interview. I was like, wow. And it said history needs documenters of history. It does. And on the other hand,
Right. Yes.
can we, okay, I love me some MSNBC. Okay, Rachel Maddow, yes. The woman can tell a story. She can make things, go into context. I love her. But the thing is, it's like this. I just wish there was a way to tell the stories and move us forward. I have pages of quotes all around me because I go through the book but one of them, who was it? Yes, Walt Disney. Forward is where hopes and dreams manifest into reality.
Yes.
Right. Can we go forward? Can we look forward? He was in the book. Yeah, there's just something about, do we have to stay mired? Can we somehow move forward into something better?
Susan, I had that quote actually highlighted also because it's so stuck with me that, yes, I understand someone has to be a documenter of history. I get it. But I also think that as a human being, we have a moral responsibility to portray things in a light that is going to better humanity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I do the same thing with of course I'm medium, that's my gig, but I do a lot of life coaching. I do a ton of other things. I was teaching a psychic medium class last night, and it was kind of a little bit more of an advanced one. And I think the biggest fault of a lot of mediums is they don't take care of their own crap, and then it filters through in their readings.
Yeah.
And so I kind of felt that was the same concept when I was reading this book. Okay, so walk this path with me. I was training back and forth. Someone was reading me, and I had already double linked with them, which I knew which spirit of mine they had. I knew what the message was, and they were giving me the wrong message because they were filtering it through their own crap, basically. And the message was coming through a little bit negative. And so I was able to step back. I said, no, step back. What symbol are they giving you? What do you think they're saying? And they were able to then say, oh, I see. But I see a lot of mediums do that. I never have a spirit come through and talk in negativity about anything. Spirits are residing in love and light. They may give you directions, but they're not going to be critical of you. They might tell you need to change. Have you thought about doing this, doing that? But they're not going to make you feel guilty and all that. So that was the same kind of concept I felt with this. As a journalist, I feel like that they have a certain responsibility to portray the truth. And I don't feel like whenever you are just, yes, this is something horrific and you are filming it, you're documenting it, but call it what it is. It's horrific.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like I just want to mention this about her because the way I did these is, I didn't go do research, for people who had like no idea, like Abby Hoffman was before my time, really.
Yeah, some of these I'd never heard of. Some of these people.
Yeah, well, that's how I knew it wasn't just me. They're like, talk to Abby Hoffman. I'm like, wait a minute. You're the guy that wore the stars and stripes, which is actually interesting thinking about it. So I had to I sort of Wikipedia'd a couple paragraphs just to, oh, that's him. And then I wrote out 3 or 4 questions to ask him. And then he just went with it. And when this whole other, he's a peace guy. He's all about peace, stars and stripes. And
I had no idea who he was. Actually. I had no idea.
Yeah, he was pretty funny. And I did learn a lot through doing this book because at the beginning of these all have the same format. At the beginning of each piece, is a little bio, but it's not more than usually like a half a page, tell you where they're born, when they were born, and just a little about them. And then the interview, which it was never more than just like 5 or 6 pages, 7 pages. And anyway, I have no idea what I was talking about because I think of 3 different things, but okay, I have no idea.
You
I
were
just
talking
keep
about the
thinking about
stars and stripes guy and how funny.
the stars. Yeah, I know. There was a
Researching.
point to
You
that.
know,
It's okay.
I would say that Susan is kind of right that even if you don't know, and it reminds me of when I do a podcast, because sometimes I don't know the person real well. So I will go to their website and research a little bit just so I can have some questions ready. I have to know a little bit about their history. I think that's where Susan was going with it.
It was just that the format of the book is like that. I want to just say it is extremely user friendly. And then thinking about Abby Hoffman, that he was all the my ears ringing. Okay, that's just a sign I get that they're around.
Yeah.
But he said he's part of a think tank on the other side, and they think about peace and they try to strategize how to bring about peace on earth, and then they filter down information and give it to us. Right. And that's like, I mean, that was the point, that they haven't left us alone to like deal with whatever's going on here. They're trying to help us if we will allow them to help us.
Absolutely. And I absolutely love that. Once you cross over, you don't just sit on your laurels. You have jobs. And I love that if we're open to it, they can talk to us. Everyone has the ability to talk to to get downloads from the other side and to talk to the other side. It's just honing it and learning what you're getting and understanding the information and how it's coming to you. But I did love that, how everyone was talking about love. And I do remember reading that about him being a part of a think tank. And because I sat back for a moment and just thought about that. And I was envisioning all these beautiful souls over there around the table, thinking of how to help us.
Yes, it's interesting because I just gotta chill. I just get mediums often get, physical signs that we're familiar with when we're getting like
downloads
or download. But it's so funny because I was determined yesterday to watch this little podcast about Wayne Dyer.
Oh yes, sweet Wayne Dyer.
Wayne Dyer and his daughters, and another medium named Karen Noe, who's a Hay House author also. And they have been taking messages from Wayne Dyer since he passed. And they're starting to teach them, and they're writing a book about it. But he told them he's part of something now. He decided to join something they're calling the Wii Collective. And it is, I guess it's this, spiritual thinker. It's like Abraham, I guess. Abraham Hicks, a lot of people watch that, but yeah, he's decided to, am I going to start? Yes, I am. I guess there's something in here. Let me look what I wrote yesterday. Oh, I know what it was. I guess Wayne Dyer wanted a message to come in today.
Come on, Wayne, bring it.
Here we go. He is going to be part of the We Guides group consciousness. Their whole thing is to help us know to live our dreams, practice forgiveness. And this I love because this is my own personal issue. Okay. Always take the path of least resistance, because that's where the flow is. Follow the flow.
Yes.
Swim with the tide, because if you're getting bogged down, you need to really have a look at what you're doing, because, and his, I guess the message from him is that, that's not the right thing. And it's exactly what you said earlier, Christy. If you want to change your life, you got to do it with intention and action. Actually, all these folks say that.
I just want to, sorry to interrupt, Susan, but I have to tell you that it is absolutely no mistake that Wayne popped in with that message. Right here. So Susan is right here on my laptop. To the right of me is my big 3-foot screen. I am currently looking at the next class I'm teaching, which is on angels. On the slide that is showing is one I wrote right before this podcast, talking about forgiveness and how toxic holding on to that resentment and grudge is. And so in this class, we are talking about how to use angels to help you move forward in forgiveness, because moving forward in forgiveness is a miracle in itself. Also in this, a couple of slides down, because I have the whole thing planned, I was just tweaking it this morning. We're talking about moving forward on the path of least resistance, that life doesn't have to be as hard as we make it. So it is absolutely no mistake that Wayne came forward with that message.
Oh my
And
God.
she has no idea I'm even planning a glass on
I
ink.
have no
I'm like,
idea
what's in it.
Yeah. And I'm like, I was not planning to quote Wayne Dyer in this, but I was like going to listen to this podcast. It's about their masterclass they're teaching with, I think it's called Mind Valley or something. But yeah, I was like, I'm going to watch it. And it was like, okay, I actually thought it was the day before, and you're going to watch it. You know, time, Einstein is in here too. Time is like a ruler. Time is not what we think. There is only now. And they're a lot better at it.
And so I want y'all to think about this for a moment.
Yeah.
And what Susan was just talking about, that.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you have to look at the synchronicities that just dropped in, because this is absolutely the thing on forgiveness, the thing on path of least resistance. I added this morning. I'm currently doing this at 9:30 in the morning with Susan, where I am at 7:30 where she is. So I was up early, and I just felt an uncontrollable urge to go in and make these changes to this teaching. And then she brings through Wayne Dyer with the same teachings. That is not what people call a coincidence. That's a synchronicity of spirit download. Now, real quick, I know we're getting towards the end, and I have to talk about a person in this book.
Go for it. I know.
You know,
yeah,
who it's be,
hanging around.
Yep. Marie Laveau.
Marie Laveau.
Oh my goodness, love that. A couple of reasons. I'm from Louisiana, born and raised. I don't currently live there, but I was born and raised in Louisiana. Marie Laveau is not who people really think she is. You know, when people have bad images and connotations of voodoo, which it was not. And also, for those of you watching, listening, I'm holding up a plaster of a footprint, which is a huge footprint, looks more like a horse print. And it was my Great Dane, who I named Laveau after Marie Laveau.
Yes. Now, Marie Laveau was one of the couple people that I asked for. I wanted to talk to her because Christy knows I am a New Orleans fiend.
Yes.
And I just finished a screenplay set in New Orleans. And yeah, I asked for Marie Laveau, and she came in, and that was so fun. But I just opened it to this page. Yeah, people are like, Marie Laveau, ooh, voodoo, spells, bad. No, she worked with, she's talking about the law of attraction, and people she just worked with the energies of the universe. And she says, we are beings of tremendous power and never ending possibilities.
Yeah.
And she tapped into the power of nature, the power of energy, the power of our thoughts and spirits. And, you know, she talked about energy healing.
Yes, you know, she talked about herbs and healing through, medicines in nature. Yeah. And so now, being from Louisiana, I'm sure Susan already knows this, but and doing a little bit of research on voodoo. I mean, even Louisiana natives, you say voodoo, and they're like, ooh, no. What happened is that the people like Marie, and there were a couple of other ones, started getting a lot of power because they were healers. They used herbs, they used energy, they were healers. You can heal someone, you're going to start getting some power, and people got kind of afraid of them because, of who Marie was and the color of her skin. Other people didn't like her coming into power. So they started trying to make people afraid of her. I would think that the general population should be very careful when they start walking in fear, because you have to wonder, fear is used for manipulation so much. So if you are afraid of something, why? I think you probably need to do some research, because like I said, the only thing that I am ever afraid of are the spirits in human bodies who are walking away from the power of God, that are walking in darkness.
Oh yeah.
Other than that,
absolutely.
There was a couple of quotes. So from Marie, so I'm sorry, I have to read these couple of quotes. My favorite in here. Okay. I think it is where the misconceptions about Vodun come from, which is voodoo. I'm going to use the word voodoo because people understand it. If people don't understand something, they tend to be afraid of it. If something isn't manageable, easily contained in a little box, it is scary. There's something else she said in here, which I also loved, is I would, Susan asked Marie, what would you have liked to have done anything differently in this lifetime? Marie's answer was, I would have liked to further develop my capacity to love. Not only would it have made me happier, it would have made all my relationships better. And it would have made me more powerful in everything that I do. I could have helped more people with love advice too.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I have that underlined too. And the other person who said, I would have liked to further develop my capacity to love was Ava Perón.
Yes.
And no, that's why we're here. You know, if I had to sum it up, I would say, you know, from all these spirits, take action on your dreams. You know, that's why we're here. There's no need to be afraid of life. You know, take your chance, take chances. You know, this is your time. And what kind of how I weigh things now, after all of, you know, 20 years in this business and doing what I do, is I look at a decision and say, okay, when I'm finished this lifetime on the other side and reviewing this life, what I want to know is, I want to say, you know, I want to know if I would regret not doing it. Like basically, right. And Christy knows my whole thing about the trajectory of my life. I moved to LA, to Los Angeles a couple of weeks ago. I wanted to do it for years. I'm going to say right out, I'm almost 60 years old. And I'm like, wait, this is a really big thing. But I know in my heart, if I didn't do it, I look back at my life and said, I wish I had done that. So I don't want that. So I did it. And yeah, that's it. We're here to experiment. We're here to try things and walk our path and follow our heart. And if we go down in flames occasionally, that's not a problem.
It's going to happen. And that also came up in the book a couple of times. I don't remember specifically some of the people that said it, but they talked about that. Yeah. If you fail, so what? Get up and try it again. In the failures, we learn so many things. And don't be afraid of that. And I do want to kind of touch on what Susan said about, you know, following your dreams, walking creativity. Yes, sometimes life is going to be hard. Don't get me wrong. I mean, my business is growing at a rate I can hardly keep up. That's a little bit difficult. Yes, I'm very appreciative. Amazing. So incredibly blessed. But sometimes, you know, so yes, it's hard, but I'm also enjoying it and it's feeding my soul and I'm walking in love. So I know it's one of positivity. And something I say to people all the time whenever they are trying to judge me or judge others is I don't think anyone is ever going to get to the gates of heaven and be turned away because they were not judgmental enough. Now, can you imagine getting to heaven's gate and them saying, go back and try it again. You're not welcome here because you know what? You just didn't judge enough. I don't think that's ever going to happen. Walk in love. That was a huge theme in this book.
And I have to say this because it keeps popping back in my head. Your uniqueness. This was a giant lesson for me. Andy Warhol, be your own art.
Yes.
Your uniqueness. Louis Armstrong, your uniqueness is your power. Steve Jobs, the same thing. It's what will make you successful.
It's true.
Your uniqueness. And fame is about the spirit, not the body. Also a good lesson. Fame is about the spirit. But your uniqueness is what makes you powerful, and what makes you powerful will also make you successful. It's like the special things that you are, not like, you know, want to fit in with everybody. No. People will always have something to say. Trying to make them happy will not make you happy.
That is correct.
Go lean into your uniqueness. And that's what they all say.
You know, I always, when people, life coaching people, that's one of the things I say is even the most perfect person, you know, think about what society would call the most perfect person as a woman, you know, the one who keeps herself up, has the perfect children, in church every Sunday, just her children are sitting there beautifully. Even she is going to be judged for being too perfect. You are never not going to be judged. Never.
Yeah.
step into your power in your own uniqueness and your own creativity. That's where your power lies.
Mhm.
Susan, I want to thank you for being with me here today. I love this book. I could, do another couple of hours talking about it. It was just such a beautiful book. For anyone listening, please, it's called Conversations with History, Susan Lander. I got mine on Amazon, but you're saying that it's also sold on Hay House.
It is. Yeah, you can do on Amazon and Hay House. And I would love for you to join me on my Facebook. It's facebook.com/Susan Lander, Lander, author, and put these little, pretty boxes up there that it was my intention to make people feel good when they look at my Facebook. And sometimes there's quotes from Conversations with History and, lots of other inspirational, quotes, not too heavy, and the occasional cat post, little.
Yes. I will have all of Susan's information in the verbiage, whether on YouTube or
Yes.
on the whatever podcast you're listening to. Her contact information will be on there.
Yep. Also Twitter or Instagram at Susan B. Lander.
Yeah, it will.
So
thank you so much.
Thanks, Christy. This was so fun. Thank you
And
for
thank
inviting
you everyone for joining me today.